Um, the other thing is, just remind you, I'm sure you remembered, I need to shoot off a bit early today, so I'll probably go back quarter two. I'm happy to add that quarter of an hour on next week. So, yeah, just let you know. So, sort of clearing up, it's just if you're all right, putting the tables away and the chairs just to the side. I usually just shut all the doors, switch the lights off, switch the lights off in the loo, and then the door is just hooked back at the moment. So if you just pull it firmly, you then won't be able to open it again. So whoever's the last person out, you can just pull it firmly shut, and then it should lock itself then. It will lock itself. Okay. I'm going to do my demo here. So the reason being, I was going to do a watercolour demo today, and this was when I started the other day, and I tried doing it on an easel, and it all went pear-shaped. So it's the sort of technique that really needs to be flat. So if you'd like to see that, do you want to just sort of gather around a bit? So I'm using this photo. Next week I'll do an acrylics demo, so I'll use the other one that I sketched out last week. So that's the sort of thing I sketched out last week, so I'll do something on that next week. But this week, yeah, this watercolour one. This is one that I've started as a demo earlier in the week, and then I've traced it off onto another piece of paper, so I've got two versions of it. So I'll start on here and then perhaps do a little bit to this. It's almost like a sort of two-stage one. This is one of Pauline's photos, so it's quite a lot to live up to. So what I found, I mean, first of all, I just tried dampening everything over here, but it was just going all over the place, and I was trying that on the easel. So working really wet and wet, I'm just going to try and paint in the shape of one of these flowers at a time. I'm going to dampen it a little bit to start with, just to get the area that I want to work in wet, because I found that it just dried so quickly. And I do think with these sort of techniques, it is a lot of just getting used to the feel of the paint. So just practicing how wet you need it to be. I've heard some people say just kind of pop the water on, let it soak in a little bit. So that can be the first stage. Colour-wise, I've got, this is I think a bit like a rose colour, and this is more like a magenta. So to me it's something in between the two. So I'll now just try and get some sort of wet into these areas. So that's quite nice, and I'm just going to try and leave some of the areas quite white, just the white of the paper. So ideally I don't want to have to lift the paint off it, I'm going to help it. So I'm just putting that on carefully, not to overdo it. Perhaps I'll have a brush with nothing on too, just move that around a little bit. And then around here it's a little bit deeper, so perhaps go a little bit stronger there. This bit would keep fairly pale. There's quite a pale bit there, so I'll leave that like that. Just lift a little bit out of that. Round here it's quite deep, and that bit can be pink too. So it's just kind of working my way around, getting a little bit more colour here. So I think that would probably be all right for the first stage. Perhaps a little bit of a yellow into there as well. Get a bit of rag just to dry that a little bit. So the yellows, and some of these colours are sort of almost like pre-mixed, which makes it a bit easier. So just get a little bit of a hint of yellow, it's a bit lighter. In certain areas. And this mingles a little bit here. And I think that will be it for the first stage really, just kind of leave that to dry now. Yeah, I think I've kept those bright enough. If there are any other areas, I need maybe lift a little bit out there. So it's just having a clean, sort of dryish brush And I think for me, the trick is to not overwork it, not work the surface too much. So I'll leave that one. I'll just carry on a little bit with this one and add a bit to that one there. So I think I've missed a bit of pink there really, but I'll just carry on maybe around here. So I'm just going to go slightly smaller and it's stronger pinks. I think that's the right one, isn't it? Yep. So I'm just going to just dampen, that's a bit too wet. Just dampen that a little bit. I'm going with a stronger. So it's either dampen the area first and then put the colour and just let that soften out like that. Or the other way would be to I'll do a little bit over here, just work some stronger colour in here, keeping quite a nice sharp edge there, and then just soften that out with a clean brush. And then around there. So it's just kind of a matter of just carefully going around the different petals. Perhaps I'll leave that bit there for a minute and do a little bit over here, deepen this tone here a little bit. A few, few sort of crinkles there. Just soften some of those edges a little bit. And then a little bit darker again. Here. And perhaps a little bit of shadow under here. That can go a bit softer. Soften that out. So it's a sort of like a damp brush, not like a really. If I put too much water back in here, it will just flood back in, and you'll get I've forgotten what they call those sort of cauliflower sort of marks that they call them, I think. Something like that. And then for the middle bit, I think just a small brush for the something quite pointy. Let's see if that. Yeah, I use a little tiny brush, I think. The danger here is making them too big. So I've got this colour mixed here, which is a little bit brown and yellow mixed together. And there's some of these are slightly lighter than others, so let's do some lighter strands. Do some little light ones first, I think. And just where they meet down here, it actually is quite wet, isn't it? So I could just maybe get that. And the middle of that is a little bit darker. Just, like there. So something along those lines. There's a few more to do there, but I think you get the idea of that. And then just put a few dots and dashes for the bits. That one's got a bit too thick, really. The outside, I think what I'm going to have a go at is just something a bit green. Sorry, thank you. I've mixed a greenish colour, and I'm going to add some yellow to that. So this is probably going to be a bit too bright, but this will do to start with.
It's a nice brush, isn't it?
Yeah, this is just a, this is quite a nice big wash brush. It holds a lot of moisture, which is nice. It wasn't particularly expensive. I think it was like £3 or £4 from the wholesalers. It's like one of those natural hair brushes, so they do hold quite a lot of moisture. The tricky bit is that I'm not going to be able to get all the way around there before it starts to dry. So I think what I'm going to do is just sort of let that fade out a little bit. Again, more water, just let kind of that fade out to nothing. And then hopefully I can do the same, come back, you know, gradually knead these sections up. And then I want something quite dark in there, because it is quite, there are some really strong dark bits. And that's not dark enough, so let's make a darker mix. So I'm using a bit of purple and the original green. The green on its own is just going to be far too strong. So having a little bit of the lighter green in first will hopefully give me a little bit of time to work. And this area, it's very difficult to make out particular leaves. Might even be able to, I think here I might have gone even darker still. That's quite a bit darker in there. With watercolours with the darks, I think often people like to, you kind of want it dark, but you still want a little bit of that paper showing through. So this is just a green on its own there. So a little bit random. But you can see once the darks are in, it really starts to push the rose shape out. And it might be that I might need to go back in with another layer of that. And it's not. Let's go a bit stronger still. Let's try a bit more. Yeah, that's better. So that's fairly neat colour, but because it's going into an area that's already wet, that looks a bit stronger, doesn't it? Yeah, I prefer that. Don't know.
You mixed a little bit of purple with the green.
Yeah. I mean, these obviously, like on these photos will just be, you know, there's black and that mixed in there, but I think it's just desaturates the colour a little bit. Otherwise, the flowers are going to be competing with the greenery.
Yeah.
So it's having a sort of sense of there being green in there, but not too dominant. I guess once I'm there, you know, you can then see some quite dark pinks that could perhaps go in. A little bit more here. So there's more to do. Sort of subject, I'm really not an expert on this sort of thing, but it's the bits I've learnt over the years, really. Yeah.
Is it watercolour paper?
It is, yeah. So it's just it's the one I get from the wholesalers. Yeah. It's nothing particularly special. I know Pauline, who used to come to class and whose photo it was, she uses quite nice handmade papers, and I think that makes quite a difference. I think the amount of glue size on the paper, I think these have probably got quite a bit. I think some of the handmade papers are slightly more absorbent, so I think you can work the layers up more. I think with these sort of papers, you can't put too many layers before it starts to look a bit tired looking.
Yeah.
So ideally, I'd want to try and do this in as fewer goes as I can.
Well, the same. I've tried doing that. Does it work for me? I've tried doing the outline very dark and then making sure I've got a wet brush and dragging the paint away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. To get a soft edge, do you mean?
Well, it gives you a hard edge.
Yeah.
But then if you draw it away, it becomes paler and paler.
Yes, that's right.
To blend it. So.
Yeah, that's kind of what I try to do
That's
here. So keeping one edge quite hard, and then this one has started to. That bit was obviously too wet, and there's a little bit of that cauliflowering but it's sort of drawing, you know, a slightly graded wash.
What's cauliflowering? It is lovely.
Cauliflowering is like you can see it happening here a bit actually. Where I've got it too wet on the edges. Do you want to come in close? I'll show you. Or you could see. You see that sort of thing.
Oh,
and
so
there,
it's a bit
and
fluffy.
here.
I like
Yeah.
that effect, the way it's.
Oh, you mean like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that little.
So where this is too wet here, it's the wet is running back into the slightly drier paint, and it's drawing out the
It's
pigment.
a nice effect on this edge here, isn't it?
Well, here,
Yes.
that's where it's quite nice, yeah.
Lovely.
So that's sort of mingling quite nicely, but it can.
Yeah.
That
So
sometimes people use that as an effect, but it wasn't particularly what I intended.
Yeah.
don't mind it there so much actually, the way it's doing that.
I think it's lovely.
Always cauliflower you put too much.
It's using those active.
So is cauliflower, is that a proper term?
Yeah, it's the term. It's the term
I never
people
heard of
use.
it
Yeah, yeah, because I guess because it can look like
Like
cauliflower.
that?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
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 Oh, I never thought of it. I've lived on cauliflower.
You lived on cauliflower.
Well, my husband loves cauliflower.
Me too. Yep.